In a world where the lines between prosperity and destruction blur, Los Angeles stood as a beacon of hope and advancement in the year 2077. However, beneath the veneer of progress, a sinister threat loomed, casting a long shadow over the city. October 23, 2077. A day of celebration turned into a nightmare as whispers of a nuclear threat grew louder. In the heart of the city, a grand birthday party was underway. Cooper Howard, a famous actor known for his cowboy roles, entertained the children with his tricks, unaware of the impending doom. His daughter, Janie, looked on with pride, her father's past as a Marine never far from his mind. The festive atmosphere was shattered by a blinding flash, followed by a deafening roar. An atomic bomb detonated in the distance, sending shockwaves through the city. Panic ensued as guests scrambled for safety. Some sought refuge in a nearby fallout shelter, but chaos reigned supreme. Cooper grabbed Janie, and together they fled on horseback, leaving behind a crumbling city. 219 years after the bombs fell, the world had changed beyond recognition. The once vibrant city of Los Angeles lay in ruins, a stark reminder of the devastation that had unfolded. In this post-apocalyptic landscape, humanity clung to survival within the fortified vaults, while the surface was a harsh, unforgiving wasteland. As the bombs fell, those fortunate enough to find shelter within the vaults clung to a semblance of hope. Over 2 centuries later, these vaults had become the last bastions of civilization. Inside Vault 33, Lucy McLean, daughter of the overseer Hank McLean, embodied the dreams of a generation. She longed for a world beyond the steel walls, her spirit fueled by the stories of life before the apocalypse. Lucy's life took a significant turn when she convinced the special counsel to approve her marriage to Monty, a man from neighboring Vault 32. Their wedding was a rare moment of joy in the confined quarters of the vault. However, the celebration was short-lived. Lucy's brother, Norm, stumbled upon a horrifying discovery in the empty Vault 32. The place had been ransacked, and mutilated corpses of vault dwellers lay scattered. The visitors from Vault 32 were not what they seemed. They were raiders, posing as survivors to infiltrate and destroy Vault 33. As the raiders launched a brutal assault, chaos erupted. Lucy fought for her life, narrowly escaping death at the hands of Monty, who revealed his true nature by attacking her viciously. Injured but undeterred, Lucy used a stim-pack to heal herself and joined the fray, determined to protect her home. Hank intervened, saving Lucy from Monty's final attack, only to be captured by the raider leader, Lee Moldaver. Dragged to the surface, Hank's fate hung in the balance. With her father missing in the vault and ruins, Lucy resolved to venture into the wasteland to rescue him. Her journey began with Norm and their cousin Chet by her side. Stepping out of the vault for the first time, Lucy was struck by the devastation that met her eyes. The once great city of Los Angeles was now a landscape of ruin, bathed in the harsh light of the sun she had never seen. Beyond the vaults, the Brotherhood of Steel stood as a beacon of order and strength. This organization, dedicated to securing the remnants of pre-war technology, trained their soldiers in the harshest conditions. Among these soldiers was Maximus, a young aspirant with a fierce determination to prove himself. Maximus had grown up in the Brotherhood, idolizing the soldiers who ventured into the wasteland. His father, a paladin, had perished during a mission, driving Maximus to follow in his footsteps. His ambition often clashed with his loyalty to his comrades, especially with his friend Dane. Dane, a natural leader, was selected to become a squire, which sparked jealousy in Maximus. The tension between them peaked when Dane was severely injured by a hidden razor blade. Although suspicion fell on Maximus, he maintained his innocence. The Brotherhood, recognizing his potential, decided not to punish him harshly. Instead, Maximus was named squire to Knight Titus, a seasoned warrior. Their mission was to track down an Enclave scientist who had escaped with dangerous technology. The pursuit was perilous, testing Maximus' resolve. Meanwhile, under the cover of night, 3 bounty hunters gathered in a desolate cemetery. Their torches cast eerie shadows as they dug up a grave, their shovels clinking against the metal coffin buried beneath the earth. Inside lay the ghoul, a heavily mutated Cooper Howard, still alive after all these years. His once handsome features were now twisted and grotesque, a testament to the horrors of radiation. The bounty hunters, aware of the ghoul's reputation as a killer and tracker, sought his assistance in finding the Enclave scientist. They offered him a share of the bounty, a tempting proposition for someone who had lived in the shadows for so long. Cooper's life as a ghoul had been marked by a series of brutal transformations, both physical and mental. The radiation that twisted his body had also warped his mind, turning him into a creature driven by survival and vengeance. Cooper's transformation into the ghoul had been a slow and painful process. After the bombs fell, he had wandered the wasteland, trying to come to terms with his new reality. His once celebrated life as an actor was now a distant memory, replaced by a relentless struggle for survival. He had been captured by a gang boss named Dom Pedro, who exploited his abilities for personal gain. Now free, Cooper's eyes gleamed with a cold, calculating gaze. The years of captivity and the mutations had made him ruthless. As the bounty hunters presented their offer, Cooper saw an opportunity not just for freedom, but for revenge and power. Without hesitation, he betrayed them. In a swift and brutal attack, he killed 2 of the hunters, their bodies crumpling to the ground. The third he buried alive in his own empty grave, a grim reminder of Cooper's descent into darkness. With the bounty hunters dispatched, the ghoul set off alone, driven by motives known only to him. This is the world of Fallout, where every survivor has a story, and the quest for hope continues against all odds. In this desolate landscape, humanity's spirit endures, driven by the eternal flame of survival and the pursuit of a better tomorrow. Dr. Sigga Wilzig, a brilliant yet twisted scientist affiliated with the Enclave. This organization is notorious for its ruthless experiments and authoritarian ambitions to restore pre-war America under their control. In a chilling scene, Wilzig oversees a controversial project involving the breeding of genetically engineered dogs. He is particularly fixated on a dog named CX-404, a remarkable specimen he has nurtured since birth. The Enclave's practices are brutal. Any dog that doesn't meet their stringent standards is immediately euthanized. Wilzig's obsession with perfection is evident as he falsifies records to save CX-404, believing this dog holds the key to his ambitious plans. Wilzig's decision to inject himself with an experimental serum designed to enhance physical abilities is fraught with consequences. The serum's effects are unpredictable, and Wilzig's desperation becomes evident as he faces growing paranoia and erratic behavior. His actions are soon discovered by a fellow scientist, leading to a deadly confrontation. In a desperate move, Wilzig commands CX-404 to attack, resulting in the scientist's death. With the situation spiraling out of control, Wilzig escapes the Enclave with CX-404, heading into the wasteland. This act of defiance sets him on a collision course with various factions, including the Brotherhood of Steel and a formidable bounty hunter known only as the Ghoul. Meanwhile, our resilient protagonist Lucy is on a relentless quest to find her father, who disappeared when she was a child. Her journey through the wasteland is fraught with danger, and as night falls, she sets up camp under the stars. Despite knowing the risks, Lucy lights a campfire, a small act of defiance against the encroaching darkness. This moment underscores her determination and bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. As she rests, memories of her father flood her mind, fueling her resolve to continue her search despite the hopelessness that surrounds her. As night falls again, Lucy encounters Wilzig and CX-404. Their meeting is tense, filled with an uneasy mix of curiosity and foreboding. Wilzig, despite his malevolent background, warns Lucy about the lethal realities of the wasteland. His advice to adapt quickly to survive is both a genuine warning and a reflection of his own harsh experiences. This brief interaction reveals an unexpected layer of humanity in Wilzig, hinting at a complex character driven by more than just scientific obsession. Lucy, sensing the ambiguity in Wilzig's nature, chooses to listen intently but keeps her guard up. Wilzig, on the other hand, seems to recognize a kindred spirit in Lucy, someone who, like him, is navigating a world full of dangers and uncertainties. However, their paths soon diverge as Wilzig continues his mysterious journey, driven by an agenda known only to him. He moves with a sense of urgency, CX-404 loyally at his side, suggesting that his goals are both immediate and significant. Lucy encounters a farmer in a house in the desert, attempting to fix a water filter by putting sand in it. She offers him a sip of her drinking water, and he drinks the entire bottle. He directs her to Philly despite having never been himself. He claims people often get killed there, including several of his relatives. The farmer suggests that Lucy lived with him and claims to be dying. She declines and starts heading towards Philly. The scene shifts to Maximus and his mentor, Titus, members of the Brotherhood of Steel, an organization dedicated to preserving and reclaiming pre-war technology to protect humanity. Maximus, still a squire, follows Titus on a mission to locate Wilzig. Their journey leads them into a perilous cave, where they encounter a terrifying mutant bear, a stark reminder of the mutated horrors that lurk in this world. Titus orders Maximus to face the beast alone, testing his courage and resolve. Maximus' internal struggle is palpable as he grapples with his fear and the oppressive expectations of the Brotherhood. In a dramatic turn of events, Maximus decides to let Titus, who is severely injured and belittles him constantly, bleed out. This decision marks a pivotal moment for Maximus, symbolizing his rejection of Titus's authority and the oppressive hierarchy of the Brotherhood. Taking Titus's armor, Maximus steps into a new role with a sense of autonomy and purpose, determined to forge his own path. In the vast desert wasteland, Maximus, donned in weathered power armor, encountered a solitary stranger cloaked in tattered garments. Their meeting was marked by cautious curiosity and mutual wariness. The stranger spoke of rumors surrounding Maximus, a legendary figure of the wasteland. Maximus listened intently, his stoic demeanor softened momentarily by the stranger's gesture of offering water. As dusk fell, they parted ways, their brief encounter resonating with unspoken truths and the weight of shared survival in a world consumed by desolation. Amidst the crumbling remnants of a once thriving city, Lucy's journey through the wasteland led them to a secluded corner where an old woman stood amidst the ruins. Her weathered face bore the lines of a life shaped by hardship and loss, yet her eyes glinted with a fierce determination that spoke of resilience in the face of adversity. Lucy's quest for her father brings her to Philly, where she hopes to find clues about his whereabouts. She visits a local shop and, through a tense interaction with the shopkeeper, an old lad, and inquires about the raiders. As she navigates the dangerous streets of Philly, Wilzig and CX 404 join Lucy and the old lady. The old woman's voice, raspy yet filled with an unexpected warmth, greeted them with a cautionary tale woven with threads of ancient wisdom and sorrow. She spoke of a looming storm, a metaphor for the gathering darkness that threatened to engulf them all, a warning that resonated deep within Lucy and Wilzig's hardened hearts. Back in the settlement of Philly, tension mounts with the introduction of the ghoul, a menacing figure with a hefty bounty on his head. The ghoul's presence in Philly adds a palpable sense of danger and unpredictability. The ghoul, a former human transformed by radiation into a grotesque, immortal state, has a reputation for ruthless efficiency and a penchant for violence. His disfigured appearance and cold demeanor make him a figure to be feared and respected. Lucy's path crosses with the ghoul, who has cornered Wilzig. A brutal fight ensues, and Lucy finds herself caught in the crossfire. The ghoul's pursuit of Wilzig is driven by a mix of personal vendetta and the substantial bounty placed on the scientist's head. As he navigates the lawless environment of Philly, he leads a trail of intimidation and violence. His methods are brutal, and his presence alone is enough to send shivers down the spines of the townsfolk. In a dramatic confrontation, the ghoul corners Wilzig in a local bar, leading to a violent showdown. The bar erupts into chaos as patrons flee and gunfire echoes through the settlement. Amidst the chaos, Maximus arrives, wearing the Brotherhood armor he claimed from Titus. His timely intervention protects Lucy as he engages the ghoul in a fierce battle. The confrontation is intense, showcasing the high-stakes combat that defines the Fallout universe. Despite his lack of experience, Maximus holds his own against the formidable adversary, driven by a newfound sense of duty and honor. The fight is brutal, with Maximus leveraging his armor's capabilities to fend off the ghoul's relentless attacks. The ghoul's viciousness is on full display as he matches Maximus blow for blow, using his cunning and ferocity to gain the upper hand. However, Maximus' determination and tactical use of his armor give him the edge he needs to protect Lucy and drive the ghoul back. With Golda momentarily distracted by Maximus' unyielding assault, Lucy guides Wilzig through a maze of narrow alleys and debris-choked passages. They flee deeper into the wasteland, leaving behind the chaos and destruction. Meanwhile, in a surprising display of empathy amidst the chaos, Golda tends to Dog's wounds with a deftness that belies his fearsome reputation. In the aftermath of their harrowing escape, Wilzig leans heavily against a crumbling wall, his face etched with exhaustion and pain. Lucy kneels beside him, her cybernetic eye dimmed with concern as she carefully tends to his makeshift bandages with a steady hand born of experience and compassion. The episode ends on a tense note, with our characters facing an uncertain future. Lucy's resilience and resourcefulness, Maximus' evolving sense of morality and independence, and Wilzig's complex motivations are central to the unfolding narrative, setting the stage for future conflicts and revelations. Before the Great War, Hooper is filming a Western movie at a studio. He shoots a scene where his character, a sheriff, says "Fio fuerte formal." He was ugly, strong, and had dignity, while confronting the villain. Cooper objects to his character killing the villain as per the script. The director explains that the scene is meant to show that even a good man can be driven to terrible acts. When Cooper tries to call in one of the writers, the director tells him Bob has been fired for communist ties. The director says the movie's theme is strong individualism in a lawless world. Cooper ends the conversation when he sees his wife Barb nearby. She gives him a piece of lavender taffy, which he finds disgusting. Barb gives Cooper his costume for a photo shoot, and they cheerfully head toward the trailers with their daughter Janie, who races her father there. In the present day, the ghoul inspects Wilzig's headless corpse with CX 404. He starts coughing and downs a vial containing an unknown chem to ease his symptoms. They both leave to look for the missing head. Lucy wanders through the wasteland carrying Wilzig's head. Inspecting the head by her campfire, she notices a pulsating blue bead in the skin behind the ear, which shocks her when she tries to touch it. She sticks a tracking chip in the head just in case. Maximus assesses his damaged power armor, removing a crucial broken piece. The voice of Petty Officer Shortsight of the Brotherhood of Steel comes through the armor's radio transmitter and questions Knight Titus for missing his scheduled check-in. They're unaware that Maximus had left Titus to die and taken his armor. Maximus, impersonating Titus, reports having been attacked by an abomination and claims his squire was killed in battle. Shortsight insists on sending a replacement squire, causing Maximus to panic and destroy the transmitter. He leaves behind the armor to search for a mechanic to repair the damaged piece. In Philly, the residents are recuperating from the previous battle. Maximus finds a mechanic who demands 5 caps to repair the piece. Maximus only has 4. Hence, he sells one of his teeth to pay for the rest. The mechanic briefly welds the piece and takes his money. Returning to the armor, he finds scavengers trying to steal it. They beat him up and manage to open up the armor. Maximus returns for a second round, and this time sticks his arm in the sleeve of the armor, using it to crush the head of the scavengers' leader, Tom. The others flee while Maximus sees a vertibird fly into Philly. It drops off Thaddeus, Maximus' main Brotherhood bully, to be his replacement squire. He hastily reattaches the repaired piece and puts on the armor before Thaddeus greets him. Maximus also contemplates crushing Thaddeus' head, but the latter begs for his life and swears his loyalty to him. Maximus decides to make Thaddeus his personal manservant instead. Thaddeus reports that whoever finds the target will control the wasteland, and they are to kill anyone on their path to find it. Lucy navigates Hollywood Boulevard, which has become a flooded lake. She has a tender moment feeding a fawn before it is suddenly dragged into the irradiated lake by a mutated gulper. The gulper also steals the head and swallows it. Before she can try to retrieve it, the ghoul holds her at gunpoint and demands that head, but soon realizes the gulper got it. Inside Vault 33, Chet mourns Lucy's departure. He and Norm are punished for helping Lucy escape by being reassigned, with Chet lamenting he has lost his identity without his job as gatekeeper. The council struggles to decide where to place Norm since he has shown equal apathy in every job he's ever had, but they eventually settle on having him serve food to the imprisoned raiders. Maximus enjoys ordering Thaddeus about with difficult and inconsequential chores, such as climbing a tree to pick a non-existent apple. As they travel, Maximus talks about being prevented from following Lucy and Wilzig by the ghoul. Thaddeus assumes he killed the ghoul according to the Brotherhood's policy against mutants, but Maximus says the ghoul is alive. Thaddeus interprets this to mean that the Knight let him escape to lead them to Wilzig. Thaddeus begins tracking the ghoul's radiation trail. They later find Wilzig's headless corpse. Maximus deduces that his head is the true target and falsely assumes the ghoul is responsible for decapitating Wilzig. Thaddeus claims that the Brotherhood will someday eradicate every last one of those freaks. Thaddeus refills Maximus' water bag and reminisces about his childhood growing up on a fly farm. At Titus' urging, he admits that he used to beat up Maximus because he was also beaten up as a young recruit and regrets that Maximus didn't live long enough to find someone to beat up himself. The ghoul ties Lucy to a waterside pulley and repeatedly lowers and raises her from the water. She begs him to stop torturing her, and he recalls a pre-war study claiming that torture is ineffective, which he agrees with. Lucy questions why he is torturing her if he believes that. He clarifies that he is not torturing her, but using her as bait. The bait successfully lures the gulper and emerges, but the ghoul cannot suppress it, and it attempts to swallow Lucy. Lucy beats the monster with the ghoul's bag to defend herself, and it eventually retreats. The ghoul opens his bag and realizes his supply of vials has been destroyed. Furious, he yells expletives at Lucy, and she snaps at him for his cruelty, bringing up the golden rule, "Do unto others as you would have done unto you." The ghoul abandons the gulper in CX-404 and starts dragging Lucy away with him despite her insistence that they retrieve the head. He tells her the wasteland has its own golden rule: thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time. In Vault 33, a meeting is held in the atrium to decide the fate of the imprisoned raiders. Woody Thomas suggests they educate and gradually integrate the raiders into Vault society, which most of the dwellers agree with. In particular, Davy offers to teach the raiders Shakespeare and Marlowe. At the same time, Marianne the Vault Scholar insists on teaching them morals first in the form of Kant and Mill, and a third dweller offers to teach calculus. Meanwhile, the suggestion does not sit well with Norm and Steph, Scoffing at the thought of educating the raiders, the council calls out Norm, who suggests they simply execute the prisoners, but the idea is shot down. Just then, an engineer comes in, saying he has bad news to deliver in private. Woody and Reg make him tell the entire assembly despite the engineer's reservations to do so. The engineer announces that the vault's water chip is broken. Without it, the vault's water supply will last less than 2 months. The residents begin to panic, and the meeting is adjourned. Steph, whose husband Bert was killed by the raiders, quietly tells Norm she agrees with his idea. Maximus and Thaddeus track the ghouls' trail to the lake, which apparently leads into the water. It dawns on Thaddeus that the trail may be mixed up with a different abomination as the gulper charges at them in the water. Maximus orders him back to shore while he shoots the gulper, but misses all of his shots. The gulper lunges from the water and attacks Maximus, but is wounded by a gunshot from Thaddeus. Angered, it crawls onto shore and attempts to swallow Thaddeus. Maximus pulls him out, causing the gulper to regurgitate its stomach contents. They see CX-404 licking the regurgitated head nearby and celebrate their success. The ghoul marches Lucy through the desert, and they walk through the ruins of California Crest Studios. Lucy begs the ghoul to share some of his drinking water with her. He ignores her and lets some water spill out for good measure. They pass some filthy and irradiated water, and the ghoul tells Lucy that nothing stays clean on the surface. She asks if radiation caused his current appearance, and he responds, something like that. Lucy sees a billboard showing Vault Boy giving a thumbs up, and the ghoul spitefully shoots a hole through the mascot's head. In the past, Hooper emerges from his trailer at California Crest Studios wearing a Vault jumpsuit. He arrives on the set for a photo shoot where Barb, who works as a Vault Tech Corporation executive, has asked him to shoot some advertisements for the company to give them a celebrity endorsement, meeting junior executives George Yaffe and Sarah Clements in the process. Before the shoot begins, Hooper asks the executives whether the Vault jumpsuits are radiation-proof. They shoot glances at each other before hastily saying yes. During the shoot, Cooper suggests he give a thumbs up for some of the pictures, and one of the Vault Tech employees agrees. It is implied that Vault Boy is later modeled after Cooper. The ghoul, suffering from withdrawal, begins coughing as he marches Lucy through the desert. They pass a medical clinic and hear someone yelling, "My name is Roger," inside. The ghoul forces Lucy to enter the clinic first. Inside, they find Roger, a nearly feral ghoul, and the ghoul greets him as an old friend. Roger laments how rough life has been since many smoothies are bigoted against ghouls, but notices Lucy and remarks that the ghoul has seemingly befriended a smoothie. The ghoul apologizes for not having any vials to stop his friend from turning feral. Roger warns them to leave before things get ugly and says it's been 28 years since he started showing signs of going feral. The ghoul himself has staved off the process for even longer by making steady money for vials. The ghoul begins reminiscing about pre-ghoul life and the food they both enjoyed, getting Roger to think about happy thoughts. Turning to Lucy, Roger happily begins telling her about his mom before the ghoul suddenly Mercy kills him mid-sentence, horrifying Lucy. Lucy questions the murder, and the ghoul asks her name for the first time. He is surprised to learn her last name is McLean. Lucy is further revolted when the ghoul begins eating Roger's corpse. She claims the people of Vault 33 have never resorted to cannibalism even during a Great Plague of 77, during which her mother starved and her father dropped to 128 pounds. The ghoul doubts her story. Lucy asks how he can go on living this way. He appears briefly shaken by the question but dodges answering and demands her help cutting up Roger. She somberly complies. The residents of Vault 33 decide to elect a new overseer with Reg, Woody, and Betty as the candidates. Woody tells Reg he tried interrogating an imprisoned raider to no effect. The same raider attempts to break free from his confines, and Woody decides to sedate him. Betty confronts Norm about his suggestion at the assembly, and Norm remembers hiding when the raiders attack. Betty advises him to tread lightly as he wrestles with his anger, stating that as the last McLean, his words carry more weight among the population than he realizes. Near Santa Monica Boulevard, Lucy and the ghoul stumble upon a trough of water that the former's pit boy indicates is irradiated. Nonetheless, the ghoul refills his flask from the trough, and a parched Lucy cannot stop herself from drinking too. The ghoul seems to take pleasure in watching Lucy be broken down by the realities of the wasteland. She asks, "What are you?" And he says, "I knew, sweetie. You just give it a little time." He's overcome by a sudden coughing fit, and Lucy uses the opportunity to try to make a break for it. She is caught off guard by a crater in the middle of the city when the ghoul uses a lasso to drag her back to him. In the ensuing struggle, Lucy bites off one of his fingers. He, in turn, cuts off one of hers with a knife and calls the interaction the closest thing we've had to an honest exchange so far. Back in Vault 33, Chet is visited by Steph in his suite, and they bond over their shared trauma. She gives him some clothes that belong to her dead husband, Bert. Seeing Chet wear Bert's scarf and sweater, Steph starts crying and calling him Bert. She starts kissing him, and they impulsively decide to have sex. Before they can, Steph's water breaks and she goes into labor. The ghoul takes Lucy to the Super Duper Mart seen across the crater near Santa Monica Boulevard. Using a squawk box outside to communicate, the ghoul sells Lucy to an unidentified male voice in exchange for 2 months' worth of chems. He forces her through the door before collapsing. Inside, Lucy is amiably greeted by Snip Snip, a Mr. Handy robot. Snip Snip guides Lucy to a gurney where he surgically attaches a new finger to her hand from a drawer of detached human fingers. Lucy begins to relax and admits that she feared she had just been sold as a sex slave. Snip Snip is appalled at the idea and cheerfully explains that he merely plans on harvesting her organs. He shoots her with a tranquilizer, and she passes out on the gurney. Norm brings dessert to the prisoners. He judges a raider for killing the people of Vault 32, but the raider insinuates that they were already dead when they arrived. When Norm refers to the vault dwellers as innocent, the raider says that they were anything but. Suspicious, Norm tries to access the Vault 32 record from his computer but is denied. In Chet's suite, Steph is giving birth on his couch, assisted by doctors, when Norm invites him on an excursion. Chet and Norm sneak into Vault 32 to find their crop field, which has seemingly been dead for years. Investigating further, they find multiple vault dwellers dead from either suicide or violent murders. The pit boy on one corpse indicates that its wearer has been dead for 2 years. One resident, dead from sticking a fork in a toaster, sits in front of a looping television program about mice in an experiment who begin killing each other after their environment is overpopulated, suggesting that the vault shared the same fate. Norm discovers the words, "We know the truth," written on the wall in blood. Lucy dreams of her mother as she begins to come to. Snip Snip wheels her past a refrigerator aisle of captive ghouls, their organs on sale for 500 bottle caps apiece. One female ghoul repeats, "My name is Martha," in a similar manner as Roger. The human captors, Huey and Squirrel, instruct the robot to cut Lucy up immediately. In a separate room, as Snip Snip begins the surgery, Lucy breaks free from her restraints and overloads the robot's circuits with a defibrillator. Lucy confronts Huey and Squirrel, threatening to destroy Snip Snip. They are apathetic since he is a robot. Lucy reveals she loaded the robot's dart shooter with toxic drain cleaner and threatens to inject them with it. They set most of the ghouls free by her demands. Lucy orders them to free the remaining 4 ghouls, and they reluctantly do so. When they emerge, she realizes they are feral. Huey and Squirrel kill 3 of the ghouls and are killed themselves in the process. Martha alone remains and desperately repeats her name while going feral. Lucy tries to break through to her, but is forced to shoot and kill Martha after she attacks. Chet and Norm find more dead Vault 32 dwellers. In the Overseer's office, they find the dead Overseer tied to his chair and the words "Death to Management" graffitied on the wall. Norm accesses the Overseer's computer to look up vault door records. He discovers the door was open from the outside with the Pip-Boy registered to his mother, Rose McLean. Lucy leaves the facility clad in protective leather pads. She finds the ghoul supine on the ground and deduces that he will soon go feral if he does not have access to vials. She firmly says that she will never be like him and gives him the supply of vials he needs. She says, "Golden rule, motherfucker," and departs. Later, the revitalized ghoul enters the building and gorges himself on chems and vials left by the dead inhabitants. He sees a tape of the man from Dead Horse on the TV and pops it in. He nostalgically watches his younger self kill the movie's villain as he sits on the couch in silence. Maximus, posing as Knight Titus, and Thaddeus celebrates their successful retrieval of the head of Siggy Wilzig. Thaddeus requests that Maximus brands him with Knight Titus power armor to signify his squirehood to him. Afterward, Maximus reveals his true identity to Thaddeus. This results in a scuffle where Maximus crushes Thaddeus' foot, and Thaddeus disables Maximus' power armor by taking its fusion core. Thaddeus then leaves Maximus stuck in the armor and flees with Wilzig's head. Hours later, Lucy discovers Maximus, posing once again as Knight Titus in the disabled power armor, and saves him from radroaches. Maximus convinces Lucy to open the power armor and set him free in exchange for Radaway for her radiation sickness. After setting Maximus free, Lucy collapses due to her radiation poisoning. In Vault 32, Norm questions how the raider got hold of his mom's Pip-Boy that's necessary to open the vault. Chet persuades him to return to 33, but Norm insists on checking the 32 to 31 inter-vault door. At the door, the two discover the corpses of the Vault 32 dwellers and the words, "We know we waits in there," written in blood. Norm and Chet deduces that the dwellers must have been trying to open the door. Horrified by what they have seen, the two return to Vault 33. After a while, Lucy awakens, being treated by Radaway, and sees Maximus covering up the power armor and preparing to follow Thaddeus' trail and retrieve Wilzig's head. Lucy makes a deal with Maximus to let him help her track down that head with her Pip-Boy tracker, and in return, Maximus promises to bring Brotherhood reinforcements to save Lucy's dad. Back in Vault 33, the Overseer election is commencing. While in line to vote, Davy apologizes to Reg while insinuating that he plans to vote for Betty. Ray takes no offense and ends up voting for her himself. Betty later wins the election with a 98% majority. Norm analyzes the inter-vault trade records and discovers that all of Vault 33's former overseers, including Betty and Hank, had been from Vault 31 as part of the trades. After the reveal of the election's result, Betty winning in a landslide, Norm meets up with Chet and discusses his suspicion, which Chet dismisses by saying that Vault 31 had a better education system, more resources, and a tradition of voting for overseers from Vault 31 exists in Vault 33, plus a snappy rhyming slogan of "When things look glum, vote for 31. Norm visits Steve's suite, where Chet has begun a relationship with her and helps care for her newborn, albeit without enthusiasm. Norm asks Steph, who is a former Vault 31 dweller, what was different between the two vaults. She responds that Vault 31 had better mashed potatoes, to which Norm replied that it was the same response Hank had said. Lucy and Maximus pursue Thaddeus and Wilzig's head. Along the way, the pair bond, with Lucy asking what has happened in the past 200 years after the bombs dropped, and Maximus replies that the bombs dropped when he was a child. Lucy also questioned the Brotherhood's motive and of the general education on the surface. At a bridge crossing, the duo meets with Javen and Rink, another pair of traveling wastelanders. Lucy attempts to broker a peaceful crossing by making both pairs raise up their arms in a show of peace. After Javen notices Lucy's Pip-Boy, he and Rink shoot at Lucy and Maximus, wounding him. Maximus quickly downs the two travelers with Lucy's gun. Upon searching them, he declares that they are fiends, cannibalistic raiders. The traveling pair then arrives at Shady Sands, where Lucy is shocked to learn from a billboard that over 34,000 people had lived there after the war, and Maximus tells her of the existence of the New California Republic. Learning this, she questions the vault's reclamation day and of the purpose of the vault, to which Maximus says that the NCR didn't succeed in their mission of rebuilding society. Maximus shows Lucy the crater that is the remnant of Shady Sands. When Lucy asks Maximus what happened, he replies that it is the same thing that always happens. Everyone wants to save the world, they just disagree on how. Lucy then wonders if anyone had survived, and Maximus reveals that he is a survivor of the destruction. Realizing that Maximus' wound is serious, Lucy leads the pair in search of aid and arrives at the Research and Development Building of Hawthorne Medical Laboratories. She enters first, gun drawn. After a bit, Maximus enters, but when trying to find Lucy, he's trapped in a small room and gassed. In Vault 33, Betty makes her first edict to transfer a number of the vault's population to Vault 32 as a means of a resettling campaign. Betty leads the Vault 33 residents on a tour through the refurbished Vault 32. Norm has flashbacks showing the stark contrast between the current condition and the dystopian conditions of 24 hours ago. Norm commends Betty on the cleanup and asks what happened to his mom's Pip-Boy after her death. Betty replies that it was buried with her and that she and Hank were the ones who buried her themselves. Elsewhere, Lucy and Maximus wake up in Vault 4. Sometime before the Great War, Cooper films a commercial for the Vault Tech Corporation. In the commercial, he shows the camera inside Vault 4, a veritable Camelot of the nuclear age governed entirely by scientists. He introduces the Hawthorne family, headed by Lloyd and Cassandra, who are scientists studying radiation's effects on human DNA. Lloyd explains that their family and 80 others will participate in a 5-year trial period living in Vault 4. Filming wraps and Cooper is introduced to Bud Askins, who runs Vault Tech's Southern California division. He formerly worked at West Tech and helped design the T-45 power armor, which he admits had numerous design flaws. Cooper, who served in the United States Marine Corps, bluntly informs him those design flaws got many people killed. Bud changes the subject to business. He tells Cooper the ultimate weapon to crush competition is time, and the future of humanity is dependent on one word: management. A displeased Cooper quickly leaves the conversation to join Barb. She tells him they will all be attending a wrap party. He is further disappointed to learn he and Barb will be hosting it at their home. Cooper muses about the things he's willing to do for his wife and kisses her. At the party, Cooper is uncomfortable among the Vault-Tec employees present, including Bud Askins. Outside, he meets with his personal friend and fellow actor Sebastian Leslie, known for voicing a butler named Bartholomew Codsworth in a cartoon. Sebastian is the only one of Cooper's actor friends to attend the party, as the others have distanced themselves from the pitchman for the end of the world. Cooper confides that he lost a movie role over the advertisements. Sebastian tells Cooper his friend Charles Whitenknife has become associated with known communists. Sebastian acknowledges that Vault-Tec will soon run the world while badmouthing a group of guests who have come to the party wearing pit boys. He also admits to having recently sold his vocal likeness to Robco Industries to use for Mr. Handy robots. In return, he was paid $186,000 pre-tax and given his own Mr. Handy robot. Sebastian decries everything as a product, including the apocalypse. Nonetheless, he is at peace with that reality. The two uneasily toast to the future. In the present, the Ghoul wakes up on the super-duper Mark floor following a drug trip. A group of men dressed as sheriffs enter the building, and one removes the fusion core from the malfunctioning Snip-Snip. Sheriff Troy falsely assumes the Ghoul is responsible for destroying a legitimate business and killing the owners. The Ghoul does not defend himself but asks who says it is illegal. Troy says, the government. In Vault 4, a doctor removes a human tooth from the site of Maximus's gunshot injury. While in quarantine, Lucy speaks to Birdie through the glass, thanking her for taking them in. Birdie reports having recovered Maximus's T-60 power armor and suggests they stay for a few days to recover. Birdie says that she and many other Vault 4 residents are refugees from Shady Sands. While Lucy and Maximus wait for their quarantine period to expire, the former suggests they have sex. Maximus appears to be unfamiliar with how sex works and suggests that it is against Brotherhood of Steel rules. The camera pans out to reveal they're in a room marked Test Subjects. Once out of quarantine, Lucy and Maximus eat in the atrium. Lucy is relieved to be among Vault dwellers again, while Maximus is suspicious of their cult-like behavior, always smiling. Birdie introduces them to Overseer Benjamin, who they are alarmed to see has a single eye in the middle of his face. He brightly welcomes them to the Vault and outlines the rules, including that level 12 is off-limits. Lucy suddenly notices that many of the other residents also display bizarre physical mutations. In the past, Cooper entertains the idea of him and his wife quitting their jobs and moving to a ranch. Barb laughs off the idea. Cooper is dismayed when she puts on a Pip-Boy around the house and again suggests she quit Vault-Tec. He points out that they have the money for a spot in a vault even without her job, and she says the job assures them that they'll be placed in one of the good vaults, confusing Cooper. Barb avoids explaining and simply asks him to trust her. Cooper meets his friend Charlie Whitenknife in a bar and voices his disgust at Charlie attending communist meetings after they both fought in the Sino-American War. Charlie claims that Vault-Tec is evil and points out that they sell vaults to satisfy their investors. If peace is achieved, the vaults will be obsolete. Charlie recalls a movie they both starred in where cattle ranchers own more property than the sheriff and the whole town burns down. He compares Vault-Tec to the ranchers and the government to the sheriff. Charlie gives Cooper the business card of a funeral home where his meetings are held and encourages him to come. At home, Cooper receives a phone call from Barb's new assistant, Henry, and refuses the call. At dinner, Barb says that Janie is reading a book to their dog Roosevelt and reflects she will be saddened that pets are not allowed in the vaults. Irritated, Cooper questions who is responsible for Vault-Tec's arbitrary rules. The couple argue. Cooper says that he did not fight in a war to surrender his freedom to Vault-Tec, while Barb claims she does everything to protect their family. She specifies that they will be entering a special vault that oversees the others. Cooper apologizes to his wife, but his concerns are left unresolved. Presently, Lucy meets Overseer Benjamin and learns that despite his mutated appearance, he was born in a vault. He complains about the refugees in Vault 4 and is surprised when Lucy tells him Vault 33 never takes in people from the surface. Lucy asks about level 12, and Benjamin suddenly snaps and orders her out of his office. In the room containing the Vault's reactors, Maximus attempts to steal the fusion core for his armor when Birdie catches him. She assigns him to a suite and gives him a Pip-Boy of his own. In his suite, Maximus is wowed by the Vault's amenities and indulges in their luxuries. Lucy enters the Vault 4 schoolroom. On a chalkboard, a timeline is drawn depicting Shady Sands founding in 2142, the creation of the new California Republic in 2189, Shady Sands becoming the capital of the Republic in 2198, the NCR peaking in power in 2241, and finally the fall of Shady Sands in 2277, followed by an image of a nuclear explosion. She unfurls the flag to resembling the California state flag, but with a two-headed bear and the words, New California Republic. The refugees head toward the atrium for a surface dweller tradition and invite Lucy to join. The ghoul, taken captive by the self-proclaimed government, is marched through the wastes into a building with the words "the government" on a sign outside. Inside, he meets the president, his former associate Sorrel Booker. At the ghoul's request, the other men remove a bundle from his bag containing a needle, thread, and his own bitten-off finger. The ghoul gets to work sewing the finger back onto his hand. Sorrel speculates that his old friend continues living to look for her. The ghoul changes the subject and brings up a new faction leader, Lee Moldaver. Sorrel claims that he and his gang are trying to bring order to the wasteland and points out that the super-duper mark he was found in was under their protection. The ghoul claims to be responsible for killing the owners and also brags about the battle in Philly, where he killed 9 or 10 people. Troy says his father lives in Philly, and the ghoul implies that he probably killed him. Troy points a gun at him before Sorrel de-escalates the conflict and orders his men to take the ghoul out back and feed him to the hogs. The ghoul overpowers and kills Sheriffs Troy and Rex, annoying Sorrel. He removes a wanted poster of Moldaver from the wall and asks Sorrel why he has it. The ghoul notes that Moldaver has changed since he knew her. In the past, Hooper drove to the scheduled meeting at the Hollywood Forever Funeral Home despite his discomfort with the group's politics. Charlie welcomes him to the meeting and acquaints Cooper with the main speaker, Lee Moldaver, then known as Miss Williams, who introduced herself as a big fan. In Vault 4's atrium, the surface refugees remove their pit boys as the ritual begins. They light candles on a table in the center of the room and make hushing noises, confusing Lucy. She mimics their actions. However, when they begin strip half naked, she does not continue. They begin chanting about a flame mother and smear the ashes of shady sands on their skin. A portrait of Moldaver, the flame mother, is unveiled before the group and they bow down to her. Lucy and Maximus have reversed their opinions on the vault. Maximus wants to stay, while Lucy is suspicious. With the intent on proving her position, she takes an elevator to the forbidden level 12, which houses a laboratory. She sees jars of organic material and a video of a human woman giving birth to a spawn of gulpers which immediately consume their mother. Venturing further, she finds several cryopods containing pregnant women. The lights illuminate, causing Lucy to hide from the doctor who treated Maximus. While she hides, the doctor hears her, activates an alarm, and retrieves a spear gun from a glass cabinet. Just as he catches her, and she throws a beaker of acid in his face. Several residents flow in and restrain Lucy as she yells that they're all crazy. Bertie responds that she'd likely say the same thing if she went into Lucy's home. Meanwhile, Maximus happily enjoys a bowl of popcorn while watching a video of a waterfall. Adam and his son Tommy work as lead farmers, wearing a helmet and overcoat similar to that of the NCR Ranger combat armor. After a long day of work, they return home, and Adam goes into his house calling for his daughter Sandra. He is horrified to find the ghoul sitting at his dinner table eating a strange meat. To his relief, Sandra appears to bring the ghoul a drink. The ghoul laughs as he realizes Adam thought he was eating Sandra. Adam orders Sandra to step outside while the ghoul asks for information. He brings out a letter saying Adam has 3 children, but he only sees 2. Adam admits that his older son Rufus left to join Lee Moldaver's forces 2 years earlier. The ghoul identifies the other boy as Tommy and reveals that Rufus had also recruited his brother, which Tommy had kept secret from his father. The letter indicates that Rufus sent Tommy money to pay a courier to transport Wilsedig out of Philly to Moldaver. The letter was damaged when the ghoul killed Rufus and now omits Moldaver's location. Adam demands that his son give up the location for the safety of their family. He reluctantly tells the ghoul that Moldaver is in the ruins of the Griffith Observatory. As he prepares to leave, the ghoul asks Tommy if he plans on taking revenge on him as he leaves, or perhaps hunting him down later. Tommy reaches for his gun first, but the ghoul outdraws and kills him. He leaves the grieving Adam and Sandra behind and downs a vial of antiferal chems. Back before the Great War, Moldaver, then going by Miss Williams, commences a meeting in the Hollywood Forever Funeral Home. She claims that the people in power are the real enemy, and Cooper, scoffing, starts to walk out. She stops him and suggests he is sold out to Vault-Tec. He volleys the same criticism at her and her ideology. She claims she knows his wife and a side of her he doesn't. After the meeting, Moldaver privately meets with Cooper to tell him that her research division, which is working towards developing unlimited energy via cold fusion, was acquired by Barb's division. Since then, Vault-Tec has done nothing to further the project despite the fact that it could end the Sino-American War. Moldaver asks Cooper for his help getting the project back and gives him a listening device. He is repulsed by the idea of spying on his own wife, but she insists he keep it. Moldaver claims that she does not sincerely hold communist sentiments, but has been labeled as a communist for not buying into propaganda. In the present, Birdie and Overseer Benjamin admonish Lucy, who is handcuffed to a desk, for trespassing on level 12 and injuring a fellow vault dweller. They play a holotape showing Vault 4's origins, given unlimited control of the Vault. Lloyd and Cassandra Hawthorne and their subordinates experimented on hybridizing human test subjects, refugees from the surface tricked inside by promises of sanctuary, with radiation-resistant species. The test subjects eventually fought back against the scientists. In the tape, a gulper breaks through Lloyd and Cassandra's barricade and eats them. They nonetheless assert that their research still has merit moments before their demise. The laboratory is now used to treat patients still suffering from the original experiments, explaining the pregnant women seen lying in cryo chambers in level 12. Benjamin and Birdie ask Lucy what the experiment in Vault 33 was. She insists that there was none. Despite her apology, Birdie tells her that she still must be punished for bringing violence into their community. They place a bag over her head and drag her outside. Maximus sees Lucy being dragged past his suite and resolves to help her. As CX-404 pursues him, Thaddeus arrives at an abandoned Red Rocket gas station and rests to look over his mangled foot, complete with protruding bones. He locks the dog in a Nuka-Cola dispenser to prevent her from following him, still making sure she can breathe, and leaves to search for a radio station. Lucy is dragged before the chanting Vault 4 residents in the atrium with her wrists tied to a post, while Benjamin pulls out a scimitar and sentences her to her death. By means of exile to the surface, cutting the rope around Lucy's wrists while the crowd cheers. She is additionally gifted 2 weeks of supplies to give her a fighting chance for survival. Lucy asks Maximus to be allowed to stay. At the same time, Maximus steals the Vault's fusion core in order to power his T-60 power armor and briefly causes a blackout. The backup generator kicks in as Maximus suits up. In the atrium, he begins attacking the residents before Lucy explains that they're letting her go. They return to the surface and Lucy entreats Maximus to return the fusion core, as without it, the Vault will only last a few days on backup power. He is resistant to the idea, but ultimately agrees, and they drop it down the chute they came through. Maximus confesses his real name to Lucy and that he acquired the armor by allowing the real Knight Titus to die through inaction. She forgives him, admitting to her own crimes, and invites him to live in Vault 33 after they rescue her father. He agrees. Thaddeus continues trekking through the desert as his injury worsens. He follows a signal from DJ Carl, a wasteland disc jockey who exclusively broadcasts pre-war fiddle music. The snake oil salesman sees him and runs after him, offering to treat his wound. At the salesman's pharmacy, Thaddeus contemplates killing him and taking all of his drugs, but the salesman points out that he wouldn't know the difference between helpful and harmful drugs. Thaddeus agrees to exchange Maximus's fusion core for the treatment. The salesman gives him a serum that tastes foul, but, against all odds, fully heals his deformed foot in a matter of seconds. He provides directions to a radio station near Shady Sands. Thaddeus is hesitant as the town is radioactive as hell, but the salesman claims he won't have to worry about radiation poisoning anymore and leaves in a hurry. Norm continues serving food to the imprisoned raiders. One day, the raiders all die from an apparent poisoning, and Veronica is blamed. Overseer Betty sends out the new Vault assignments. Norm and Reg are to stay in Vault 33 while Woody, Davy, Chet, Steph, and her baby are among those reassigned to Vault 32. Norm visits Chet, wanting to continue investigating the conspiracy, but the latter has lost interest and is more eager to start a life with his new family. Norm calls Chet a coward. Chet responds, "We all are, Norm. That's why we live in a vault." The Ghoul tracks the head to the Red Rocket station and hears CX-404 whining inside the Nuka-Cola dispenser. He frees the dog and begrudgingly adopts her. Back before the Great War, Cooper wrestles with the idea of bugging Barb's Pit-Boy. He pairs the listening device before Barb enters the room and puts on the Pit-Boy. Cooper briefly eavesdrops on Barb, having a pleasant conversation with their daughter before throwing the device in the garbage out of guilt. That night, he watches his Vault-Tec commercial on TV and goes rifling through the trash to recover the device. He affectionately scratches his dog Roosevelt as he recalls the Vault's ban on pets. In the present, CX-404, now renamed Dogmeat, cozies up to the Ghoul by a campfire. Her new master sadly remarks, "You ain't him." Meanwhile, Thaddeus reached the KPS radio station and used DJ Carl's radio to call for assistance from the Brotherhood of Steel. Thaddeus feigns appreciation for Carl's music while noting the booby traps scattered around the area, used by Carl to kill people who come to the station to complain about his music choices. When Lucy and Maximus arrive on the scene, Thaddeus shoots at them, unloading his entire ammunition supply, but his shots hit nothing. Lucy attempts to negotiate for the head, but Thaddeus steps backward into one of the traps, causing a crossbow to fire an arrow through his neck. Surprising everyone, he does not die. He pulls the arrow out and the holes in his neck heal up. Maximus posits that Thaddeus is becoming a ghoul, a side effect of the healing serum that the salesman neglected to mention. 3 vertibirds approach the location, and Thaddeus realizes that the Brotherhood will kill him if his condition is discovered. Lucy is confused as she believes the Brotherhood are the good guys. Thaddeus and Maximus quickly summarize that it's a complicated group. Maximus takes the head and allows Thaddeus to run away. Maximus then disfigures the severed head of one of DJ Carl's critics. He instructs Lucy to take the real head while he uses the other one as a decoy for the Brotherhood. They kiss, and Lucy promises to wait for him in Vault 33 as she leaves. A going-away ceremony is held for the new transfers to Vault 32. Woody panics about leaving and tries to bail, but the Vault 33 guards intimidate him into going through with the move. Betty names Steph as acting overseer of Vault 32, and the transfers officially move out. Chet experiences a moment of regret when he sees his cousin as the inter-vault door closes. While Betty is distracted, Norm uses her computer to communicate with the overseer of Vault 31. He reports that the mission is failing, and the other overseer instructs Betty to return to Vault 31 immediately. After a short wait, the inter-vault door opens and he enters. Inside, Vault 31 is apparently deserted. Norm follows a mechanical whirring sound and is stunned by what he sees. Shortly after being rediscovered by the Brotherhood of Steel at the KPS radio station, Maximus is transported to Philly, now under occupation by the Brotherhood. He is presented before Elder Cleric Quintus, who quickly discovers that the head Maximus brought back does not contain the artifact. Maximus is promptly sentenced to death. He is spared after Dane pleads for his life, admitting that they injured themselves as seen in the end. Maximus agrees to lead the Brotherhood to the artifact. Afterward, Quintus privately confides in Maximus about his own displeasure towards the Brotherhood, believing the organization to have lost its way. He sees the artifact as an opportunity to reshape the Brotherhood in his own vision and invites Maximus to personally join him at his side. Meanwhile, Lucy reaches Griffith Observatory and is brought to Moldaver by her elite guards. Along the way, she finds the observatory courtyard to be filled with NCR civilians and notices one of the ghouls that she rescued from the Super Duper Mart among them. In Moldaver's control room, Hank is imprisoned in a cage as Moldaver awaits Lucy at a dinner table alongside a female feral ghoul. Having finally received the head, Moldaver uses a tool to remove the artifact from it. Lucy demands that her father be released. Moldaver instead reveals the truth about her father's past. Hank is but one of numerous pre-war Vault-Tec junior executives that have been cryogenically frozen in Vault 31. Each one periodically unfrozen to oversee and indoctrinate Vault 32 and Vault 33 in a bid to preserve Vault-Tec's authority and eventually recolonize the surface by force. Simultaneously, Norm ventures deeper into Vault 31 and discovers it is controlled by Bud Uskins, who is now little more than a brain in a Roomba. Norm discovers the cryogenically frozen Vault-Tec executives. Among the pods are Hank's and Betty's, having already been opened. He also finds a list of Vault 31's residents on a nearby monitor, including many other names, including Steph. Elsewhere, the ghoul continues toward the observatory. A flashback shows Cooper driving Barb to the Vault-Tec headquarters, having bugged her Pip-Boy with the audio transmitter he received from Moldaver earlier. They meet Bud outside, and Bud and Barb head in for their meeting as Cooper makes an excuse to leave. However, he decides to follow Barb into the headquarters building when he finds that the signal is too faint for him to hear from outside, eavesdropping on his wife in a waiting room while a young Betty Pearson fetches her co-worker Henry, a fan of Cooper's. A landmark meeting, led by Buttaskins, occurs between prominent corporate leaders, including Robco Industries CEO Robert House, West-Tech researcher Leon von Felden, business magnate Frederick Sinclair representing Big MT, and REPCONN Aerospace CFO Julia Masters, in discussion of potential collaboration with Vault-Tec. The meeting descends into bickering over Vault-Tec's methods. Barb mediates by proposing that of the more than 100 vaults across the country, each corporation be given its own vaults for experimentation. She concludes by suggesting that they can stage a nuclear conflict themselves to ensure a return on investments. Shocked by his wife's words, Cooper barely registers meeting a young Henry Hank McLean. In the present, Moldaver reveals that she had worked closely with Lucy's mother, Rose McLean. Rose left Vault 33 after growing suspicious of Hank's past and believing that civilization could rebuild itself on the surface, especially after having discovered evidence of Vault 33's water supply being siphoned from somewhere on the surface, suggesting the surface had been inhabited, contrary to Hank's claims. Rose discovered Shady Sands, where she raised her children before Hank returned to her, took Lucy and Norm back, and destroyed Shady Sands using a nuclear warhead. Rose survived, becoming the feral ghoul sitting at the table, while Moldaver continued her research on cold fusion and became fixated on the artifact. With the artifact now in her possession, she only needs the proprietary authorization codes from a Vault-Tec executive. Lucy begs her father to give Moldaver the codes, to which Hank hesitantly obliges. Moldaver uses the now unlocked artifact to begin priming a makeshift cold fusion reactor. In Philly, the Brotherhood prepares to move on the observatory. Dane apologizes to Maximus, who wishes to live alongside Lucy in Vault 33 once the artifact is found, although Dane doesn't find his dream feasible. The Brotherhood mounts an all-out aerial offensive against the observatory, overwhelming the NCR defenders and moving towards the observatory building despite suffering some casualties. Maximus and Dane part ways, with Maximus' squad, including Petty Officer Shortsight, heading into the observatory. The Ghoul reaches the observatory during the battle's climax, ambushing Maximus' squad inside the building. He overwhelms them by exploiting structural weak points in the armor that have been present since he served in the Marines, as well as firing in darkness. Maximus narrowly escapes, reaching Lucy before freeing Hank, who steals a suit of power armor from a fallen Brotherhood soldier. Lucy reveals Hank's destruction of Shady Sands to Maximus. In a fit of rage, Maximus attacks Hank, only to be quickly struck down. He stays unresponsive despite Lucy's desperate attempts to revive him. Lucy holds Hank at gunpoint before the Ghoul arrives and wounds him, waxing nostalgic about meeting young Henry again. He points a gun at Hank and demands to know where Barb and Janie are, but Hank retreats instead of answering. The Ghoul reflects that war never changes and tells Lucy someone is always controlling the wasteland despite the apparent chaos. The Ghoul offers Lucy a choice: stay and be killed by the Brotherhood, or travel with him to meet her makers. She executes the Ghoul Rose before hesitantly accepting his invitation, leaving Maximus behind. Sometime after Lucy's departure, Maximus awakens. A gravely wounded Moldaver returns and activates the reactor, returning power back to the ruins of Los Angeles. Moldaver asks Maximus to think about what the Brotherhood would do with such power if he could even stop them, before succumbing to her wounds. Dane enters shortly after, believing Maximus to have killed her. Maximus feebly denies it, yet Dane proclaims him a knight to a cheering crowd of Brotherhood soldiers. The Ghoul reunites with Dogmeat outside a building. The Hollywood sign is visible in the distance, and under it, the text reads, "Sponsored by Nuka-Cola." Lucy emerges from the building soon after, and the trio begins leaving in pursuit of Hank. The final scene shows a defeated Hank, walking in his power armor, arriving in the Mojave wasteland and seeing New Vegas in the distance.